Yo, it's the grammar coach, Coach Patty, coming at you today, and we're talking about complex sentences. But really, to talk about complex sentences, we have to talk about dependent clauses, and to talk about dependent clauses, we have to talk about subordinating conjunctions. So we're gonna have a conversation today. I'll try to keep it short. Let's go. Yo, so to even get started talking about complex sentences, we first have to understand dependent clauses, and you can't understand dependent clauses without first understanding subordinating conjunctions. And the first thing you have to do with that is make sure you understand what the word subordinating means. So to help us with that, I'm gonna use my handy dandy friend Alexa. Alexa, what does subordinating mean?
I don't know that one.
Never mind, she's useless. Okay, so if you work somewhere, then you are probably a subordinate, meaning that you have to kind of fall in line, you have to take orders, you're, ooh, I hate to say it, a little less important than whoever is in charge. So if we're thinking back to our previous lessons, we know that independent clauses, those are independent, Independent. And you know what that means? They're in charge, they can do their own thing. Dependent clauses don't have that luxury, and that's largely because of the subordinating conjunction that sits in front of them that makes them weaker. It makes them need some help from that independent clause to become whole. So, what I mean by this is if I say something like, I enjoy pizza, that's a whole sentence. It's independent, it's good, it can stand by itself. But if I told you something like, because I enjoy pizza, you're wondering, like, okay, what's the rest of it? Say the rest of it. So it's still a clause. You'll still have your subject and your predicate, but that word, that subordinating conjunction on the front of it, makes it so that it can't stand alone. You need more information, and it is dependent on that independent clause. So the subordinating conjunction word, and there's tons of them, and they mean different things. It really depends on what you're setting up. You could be talking about time with words like whenever, when, even words like if. You could be talking about circumstances, even though, because, since. I mean, there's cause and effects words. There's tons of subordinating conjunctions. It even gets a little confusing because some of them are prepositions. So just I'll put a handy dandy list at the end of the most popular ones, but just know any kind of word where if that word is set up in the front of the clause, meaning you have that word and then it follows with your subject and your predicate, that might need more information to become a whole sentence. And that is the point in which you have a dependent clause. Now, going back to our sentence types, a complex sentence is going to be one that contains a dependent clause and an independent clause, and it doesn't have to be in that order. What's really important that you understand as far as punctuation placement is that if you start the sentence off with the dependent clause, then you should have a comma and then your independent clause to end it. So if I'm saying something like, whenever I am hungry, comma, I order Chipotle. Shout out to Chipotle. But if I said the reverse of that, if I switched it around and said I order Chipotle whenever I'm hungry, I don't need the comma there because independent clauses are so strong, they're so gangsta, they can stand on their own. They don't need that extra comma help whenever a dependent clause ends them. But if a dependent clause is starting it, you need the comma afterward. And then, of course, because we're talking clauses, please, please, please don't forget, in order to be a clause, you'll still need a subject and a predicate. So, really, we still have our base independent clause, honestly. All we really added on there was that subordinating conjunction, and that subordinating conjunction is what made it dependent. And now that it's dependent, we need more information. And it kind of just keeps circling on back to that. I'm going to put a handy dandy little article chart on this. But really, that's kind of it. I told you it would be quick. Hopefully, that makes sense. Yeah, let me know if y'all have questions in the comments because I'm happy to answer. I know that was fast, but really, the most important thing that you understand is you still have a clause. A clause is going to be that subject predicate team. That is the base of a sentence. But sometimes your sentence might need more information to be a whole sentence. So if you have your clause, I ate, but you put something in front of it like if, although, when, whenever, as soon as, even though, and you'll need more information to finish off the rest of that sentence. And that word, that conjunction that you put at the beginning, that's a subordinating conjunction. A major clause dependent, and the dependent clause needs more information. And then once again, circling back, when the dependent clause is at the beginning of the complex sentence, you'll need a comma. If the independent clause starts off the sentence and then you just, throw in a dependent clause for more information, look at you go, then you don't need a comma. So that's common rules with complex sentences. That's how they go together. The most important thing now is that you actually understand the language. So you understand the various subordinating conjunctions. And you probably know a lot of them as soon as you get to thinking about it because it's just words that set up the relationships and sentences. But be careful because if you have a preposition, it's not exactly the same. Remember, prepositions go with objects. And if you're going to have a subordinated conjunction, that's going to follow with a subject and a predicate. And that's how you make complex sentences. Pew, pew, pew. Like and subscribe. You know the business. Peace. Oh, by the way, Coach Petty out.